Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian McQuillen, and I'm back here with Phantom Sport Industries, and I'm going to talk about 5 bold predictions I have going into this year's NBA season. Some of them are probably more bold than others, but these are things that I genuinely believe will happen this year, and I'm going to tell you why. So we'll get right into it. First, I do believe that Anthony Edwards will be named to first-team All-NBA this year. I mean, from his first year to his second year in the league, there was an increase in points, rebounds, assists, blocks, field goal percentage, three-point field goal percentage, along with steals as well. So he's gotten better in every aspect of his game, and I expect that to happen again this year. I think Minnesota has truly given him the keys to the franchise. Obviously, with Gobert and Cat, there's other hands that need to be fed. I think playing with a great point guard like Mike Conley, a guy who loves to dish the ball, is going to be great for his game and elevate his game. And we saw it last season when Mike Conley played with them last year. So I think that's going to be an aspect of his game that's going to grow, is playing off ball as well. And I think that's something that he has improved and honestly helped him from year 1 to year 2 just be a better basketball player. And as a result, every single statistical category improved from last year to the year before. So I think that's going to happen again. He averaged 25 last year. I'm not sure how much higher that number will go, but his mixture of athleticism and skill is something the league has not really seen before in that sense. His three-point ball has improved a lot from his first year coming into the league, but his ability to finish around the rim and get over the top, we've seen him have highlight dunks and all that stuff, but it's really impressive how he has a mixture of athleticism and skill. It's a little worrisome of Gobert clogging the paint, taking away a little bit from his game. But I think Cat's going to stretch the floor a little bit, Cat did say he's arguably the best three-point shooting big the league has ever seen. I'm not saying that I believe that. I'm just saying that's what he said. So I think it's interesting how that whole thing's going to work. It also would not shock me if the T-Wolves do make a big trade this offseason, or I should say this season, especially with Cat, because he's a guy who's the first overall pick, who's had a pretty solid career but hasn't really gotten Minnesota over the hump. And Anthony Edwards kind of really took the keys to the franchise, and I think rightfully so. I think right now for me, I know Dakota put out his shooting guard rankings. For me personally, Anthony Edwards is the third best shooting guard in the league, behind Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell. But I think he'll make a case for being the second best or best shooting guard in the league at the end of the season. So that's why I do think he'll be first team all league. To go more in specifics as to why I think he'll get first team is because if you look at the other shooting guards who can make a case, Donovan Mitchell is playing alongside Bradley Beal and obviously Kevin Durant. So I think his production is going to go down a little bit. Donovan Mitchell, statistically, he's going to make a run for it as well. He had that 71-point game last year. But I just think that Anthony Edwards is the number one guy in Minnesota, and it's going to help him just elevate his game even more. And I just think the other guys are just production is going to go down a little bit, just because obviously Mitchell's playing with Garland, Mobley, Jared Allen, like those guys. He's still going to get his, but I think that statistically Anthony Edwards is going to have the best shooting guard season this year. So that's why I think he'll be first team all league. I'm not saying he's better than Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker, but I'm saying in terms of this year alone, I think he's going to have a better statistical season. Obviously, the Timberwolves are going to have to make a playoff run or make a case to make the playoffs if Anthony Edwards wants to be named the first team all league, but he's shown all the signs of somebody who can lead a franchise. So we'll see how it goes. And obviously, he's a 3-level scorer, and his 3-ball has improved, as I said before, and his defense has improved as well. So I think it's interesting because he's a player who can play off ball, who can play on the ball, who can take over the game as well. We saw with Team USA what he did as the leader. So I think it's interesting to see. So that's why I think he'll be the first team all-league shooting guard this season. So we'll see how that plays out. So the second thing I'm going to get into, my second bold prediction, is that I do believe the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be this year's version of last year's Sacramento Kings. I do think this team makes the playoffs. Shea arguably had an MVP caliber season last year, averaging 30 points per game, but obviously the Thunder, I believe, were hovering around 40 wins. Just were not competitive enough for him to be in the MVP race. They did make the play-in and won a play-in game, but I think he's going to be able to take that team to a whole nother level this year. Obviously, people are not talking enough about Chet Holmgren coming back, being healthy. So I think he complements Shea well. That pick and roll is going to be deadly because Chet can also spread the floor and finish well around the rim. And Josh Giddey, an underrated guard who probably doesn't get talked about enough, is a very fundamental point guard. He doesn't really make too many flashy plays, but he gets the ball where it needs to go, complements well off Shea. It's kind of like a brand of basketball that is kind of forgotten in today's game. A lot of it's flashy, but he just kind of makes the right play. And just as I said, it's very fundamentally sound, and it's fun to watch. And obviously, Jalen Williams coming back after a promising season, making first-team All-Rookie last year. He showed great flashes of being probably that third guy for Oklahoma City. The West is also obviously competitive, and probably 5 or 6 games are going to separate a lot of the teams in the Western Conference playoff run. I think that Lou Dort is one of the more underrated two-way players in the league. He usually guards the best player on the other team for the Thunder, but his three-point shooting is a little iffy, but it's improved a little bit. So they got pieces. And Shea's just the type of player who really elevates the play of his teammates, which makes it fun to watch. I mean, and nobody expected the Kings to finish third in the West last year. Obviously, they lost to the Warriors, but that's besides the point in the playoffs. But I think OKC shows a lot of little aspects of them as well, and I think they correlate a little bit. So I think that's gonna be fun to watch. So I think the Kings kind of showed that aspect of the team. Teams can make that jump in a 1-year span. And I think Oklahoma City getting that little bit of playoff experience in the play-in last year is going to help this team in the long run. I think they'll make a case to become a playoff team this upcoming season. My third bold prediction. This is something I said about in my previous video, but I wanted to go more into it as to why I think this is going to happen. I do not think Victor Wembanyama is going to win Rookie of the Year. I think statistically he'll probably have the numbers in the games he plays to win the award, but the NBA did implement that rule in regards to the amount of games a player needs to play to be eligible for an award. And I just think, again, statistically, he'll give you 20 and 10 a night. And I think statistically, he'll definitely can be in the run for it. I just don't see him playing that many games to be eligible for it because the Spurs already rested him in the Summer League. I think they're going to take it very carefully. He is the franchise. He's the building block. He's the first overall pick. He's the type of prospect the league has never really seen before. So I think they're going to build around him, and in that sense, so they're going to take it slow. They're not going to rush him. Obviously, if you're the Spurs, you're still probably one of the worst teams in the league, so there's no need to, I guess, overplay him in that sense. So I just don't think that he will get Rookie of the Year for that reason alone. I just don't know if he'll play enough games to be eligible for it. Whereas on the flip side, one other thing I want to say is I think it's similar to how the Pelicans are going to handle Zion Williamson, or how they handled Zion Williamson in his rookie year in the first couple years in the league. They rested him a lot. He didn't really play a lot of back-to-backs. He got injured a little bit. I'm not saying Wembanyama is going to get injured, but I think they're going to be careful with how they, limit him, just because they're probably not going anywhere this season. So respectfully, but I think that it's interesting because most people probably pick him to win Rookie of the Year. So I'll give a little bit of insight on who I think can make a run for Rookie of the Year, since I don't think Victor Wembanyama will win it. Obviously, Scoot Henderson. We saw with the Damian Lillard trade what went down. I think that now he's in a situation where he's playing with Anthony Simons, he's playing with Shaedon Sharpe, he's playing with a bunch of guys who obviously DeAndre Ayton and Robert Williams now, and Malcolm Brogdon, but guys who have a lot to prove. And I think that Scoot's going to take the keys to that franchise. And obviously with Dame leaving, that's a lot of scoring and ball dominance that they have to make up for. So I think that he's going to take a very big step this rookie season. He showed some very good flashes before getting hurt in the Summer League. So I do think that Scoot Henderson's my favorite to win Rookie of the Year. There's other rookies who I like. Obviously, Chet Holmgren's going to be in the run this year because he didn't play a game last year. I just don't know because there's a lot of the Thunder are going to be a competitive team this year, so he might not have to put up crazy numbers. But I do like the Thompson twins, Detroit and Houston. I think they're going to fit well in that. I think they both play similar. Both can defend very well. They both can score around the rim. I think they'll make a run for it as well. Jarris Walker's a dark horse as well for the Indiana Pacers. He can score the ball. He can defend. Not really much he can't do. I'll be interested to see how he fits in Indiana. I'm not really sold on Brandon Miller. I think he's a bit of a volume guy who has a little bit too many holes in his game as of now. I did think Scoot should have been the second overall pick. No disrespect to Brandon Miller. He's a great player. I just don't know if he's in a situation where he's going to be able to put up the numbers to get Rookie of the Year. But I do think he has a lot of potential, and it'll be fun to watch. And I think Keontae George is a dark horse as well for the Utah Jazz. I saw him play in person last year at Baylor, and he can explode for 30 any night. And in a situation with Utah where he'll be battling for minutes, he's going to make a case, and he can score the ball. And I wouldn't be shocked if he leads rookies in scoring or top 5 in scoring for rookies this season alone. So that's my third. My third bold prediction. My fourth one is kind of two of them in one. I think the Pistons and the Orlando Magic make significant jumps this season. I'll start with the Pistons. Obviously, they finished with one of the league's worst record, if not the worst, last year. Kate Cunningham only played in 12 games, but did average 20 and 6 in those games. I just love the young core they have there. With Cunningham, obviously, I'm not completely sold on Jaden Ivey just yet. Had an up and down rookie year. He is a little bit sometimes out of control, but he's explosive and can get to the rim for his size. Is very impressive. So I think he's very raw. His talent, once he gets lets the game come to him a little bit, I think he's gonna be a great player, and just not play out of control. They have Jalen Duren, who's a great rim-to-rim presence, and I love the pick and roll he can run with Cade Cunningham, but we didn't really get to see a lot last year just because he was hurt. Bojan Bogdanovic had a very slept-on season last year where he averaged over 21 points per game, along with shooting roughly 48% from the field. Just a veteran guy who can score the ball at all three levels. He's a great shooter. And he's going to win them some games, I think, just because he can do stuff that, that a lot of players in the league can't do, and just score at that rate. He's very impressive, and he probably doesn't get talked about enough. And I kind of mentioned it before. I love the draft pick of Asar Thompson. I think he can be like a Drew Holiday type player, because I just think he needs to develop his jump shot a little bit, but he's very athletic and score around the rim. I think he's going to be a guy where down the course of the season or the next few years, he's going to be guarding the other team's best player. I think has that potential. And then along with that, they still have veterans such as Joe Harris, Alec Burks, and Monte Morris. Guys, Joe Harris shot 48 roughly percent from 3 last year. Alec Burks, also a great three-point shooter. Monte Morris, entering his 6th season in the league, has been a very important piece to a lot of very good teams in the last couple of years. And then obviously you have the interesting front court of James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley, who still have a ton of potential. Isaiah Stewart is another young big for this Detroit Piston team who has a lot of potential as well. He plays very hard and rebounds very well in the minutes he's given. He did average 11 points and 8 rebounds last season, so he's a guy who can come off the bench, provide energy, maybe even make a case for starting. I think he's like the enforcer for this Detroit Pistons team. So they have an identity this year, and they have a bunch of guys who do different things, and that's why I think this team can be dangerous. And then the last reason, obviously, why I think the Detroit Pistons will make a case for a playoff spot this year is because Monty Williams is in as head coach. I think Dwayne Casey did a great job. Former coach of the year, he probably doesn't get enough credit. But Monty Williams is a guy who, when he came into Phoenix his first year, they were 28th and 29th each, respectively, in offensive and defensive efficiency. The following season, they were 12th on offensive efficiency, whereas they were 16th in defensive efficiency as well. And so in just one season, the Suns were a pretty bad team. And then when he came to take over control for Phoenix, they really made a big jump. And I think he's got a great young core that he can really do that with. Obviously, they gave him a big contract, so they definitely see what I'm seeing in this team. And I think he's the perfect guy for the progression of this team. They're a young team. They have a lot to prove. But I think making a playoff run or playoff case this year would be huge for the growth of this team and just getting that experience. So I think Detroit is a team that people will have to keep eyes on. And they're a team, as I said, that can definitely make the playoffs. So the second team I mentioned before was the Orlando Magic. Similar to the Pistons, I absolutely love the core, the young core down there in Orlando. Obviously, starting with Paolo Banchero, who averaged 27 and 3 last year, and I think he can make an All-Star this season as well. I would not be surprised if Paolo Banchero is an All-Star player this upcoming season, along with Franz Wagner too, who's back in Orlando. He can score the ball, he can shoot the ball very well. I did love the draft pick of Anthony Black, the 6'7" guard who plays the game at his own pace. And it's fun to watch because he kind of just lets the game come to him. He's smooth. I think that was an underrated draft pick. People thought they reached at 6 taking him. And obviously they took Jet Howard, who I think was an interesting pick at number 11, just because of the young depth they have at guard with Jalen Suggs, Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony. Maybe one of those guys are moved. So I don't know. I think Jet Howard's battling for minutes, so it might be hard for him to get in the rotation. I'm not saying he can't do it, but it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Nonetheless, they still have Jonathan Isaac, who, when he's healthy, he is arguably one of the better two-way players in the NBA. So hopefully he can be out there, because when he plays, he's a great piece for this Orlando Magic team. And if Chuma Okeke is healthy as well, he hasn't played because of his injury, but he's a guy who, again, can defend and can score the ball, and that's just something this team has a lot of. And then Wendell Carter Jr., the center as well, is a great rim protector, great pick-and-roll guy, he's probably underrated, didn't get enough credit for the stuff he did last year. So my only question about this team is the guard depth, and what will the guard rotation look like? I guess Fultz would be the guy. Obviously, Paulo and Franz. Then you have you have Mo Wagner as well. So I think it's interesting. So that's just kind of what I think is going to happen with the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons. I think they do make a series run for the playoffs this year. It's fun to watch. They got young cores. Paolo and Kate Cunningham got big years ahead of them. But I will say now, I would not be surprised if Paolo Banchero is an all-star. So I guess that's another bold take in this Orlando Magic, season prediction I have for them. And the fifth and final bold prediction I'm going to make for today is I do think the Heat are going to struggle this year. I think they'll have to make big changes around the deadline. If you're a Heat fan, obviously you're not very happy with missing out on star players like Damian Lillard, Drew Holiday, and of course Bradley Beal as well. At the end of the day, this team did make the finals. They were an 8 seed nonetheless. And I'm saying if they get to the playoffs, they can you can see with Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley, they know what they're doing in the playoffs. I'm not saying they don't know what they're doing in the regular season, but I do think they're going to struggle this year because at the end of the day, Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, a year older. They didn't really make any free agent acquisitions. I believe they re-signed Josh Richardson, so he's a great piece for them. But they lost Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, who were key pieces for them. I think the Gabe Vincent losing him, I think that's going to hurt them a little bit more because people don't talk enough about that 3-point shot he hit against the Milwaukee Bucks the same game. Jimmy Butler made that ridiculous game-tying. I don't even know how to explain it. The game-tying game winner, where he was falling down and threw the ball up and it went in. Because if Gabe Vincent doesn't make that three, the Miami Heat are not in that game. But that's besides the point. I think losing Vincent's going to hurt them, and obviously Strus is shooting as well. He was a bit streaky, but they did lose some key pieces and didn't really gain a lot. So I think, and at the end of the day, they were still an 8 seed last year, and I think there's a bunch of teams in the East that obviously got better with the Bucks, with the Celtics. Sixers may have fallen off a little bit, but they still have the talent to make the playoffs as well. The New York Knicks as well had the very impressive season they had last year. The Cavs, and as I said, there's a couple other teams in the East that can really make a jump. The Indiana Pacers are also another team to keep your eye on, and the Bulls still have talent at the end of the day. It's interesting to see what's going to happen there because they have a very, on paper, they have one of the better teams in the East. It's just it hasn't worked on the court. Obviously, with Lonzo Ball being out, doesn't help as your floor general. Hopefully, he gets better soon and back on the court because he's a guy I love to see play. But going back to the Heat, I just think they're going to struggle. And, they still have Kevin Love. They have other guys. They have Bam, obviously, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, of course. They have talent. It's just I don't know if they are going to put it all together this year in the regular season. Obviously, Jimmy was hurt a little bit last year, so that's kind of why they fell off a little bit in the regular season. But I think that there's too many teams that improved and made a jump this offseason in the Eastern Conference specifically that they'll have to consider. I don't know about rebuilding or trading for another star, but as of now, I think they're going to fall off a little bit. So I wouldn't be shocked if they struggle at the bottom half of the Eastern Conference in terms of playing playoffs, like 7, 8 seed, 9, 10, something like that, similar to what they were this year. And I mean, Jimmy, if things go south, Jimmy might want to change as well, or just them to fix something. And I mean, it's got to be frustrating for Tyler Hero that he's been pretty much in the trade talks the year he entered the league every offseason. Obviously, I'm sure he loves playing in Miami, but it's interesting to see how that always played out. And then, I just think Bam has to be a little bit more aggressive as well. When he's aggressive, he's a top 3 center in the league. I don't think there's top 3, top 5 center in the league. I don't think there's any debate there. But when he's aggressive, he's unstoppable. And he does a great job of stretching the floor. His mid-range is great. So I just think he has to take it step 2 if this team wants to get back to the NBA Finals and get the job done. Those are my hot takes for today. Thank you for listening. This has been Brian McQuillen here reporting for Phantom Sport Industries. Thank you, everyone.